We'll roll in as we go. So I'm your host. My name is Yarrow Willard. I am a clinical herbalist and founder at, or co-founder, we'll say, at the Harmonic Arts Botanical Dispensary and Herbal Company. We do all kinds of elixirs and herbal drinks and tinctures and teas, and you probably know all about us because you've joined this webinar. Yeah, I'm really excited to be crafting up plant medicine all throughout the year. Especially in the summer months, we can get really innovative because there's lots of fresh ingredients to work with. So what we're going to talk about tonight, I want to invite you to be just really aware of, like, you can make all kinds of things using templates, using recipes, get crafty around how you make drinks. We're going to talk about how to craft up some herbal drinks with the Harmonic Arts products, some of the formulas we've kind of put together and some of the ways in which you can work with that. But before we get going, I want to do a little touch in on solstice. So let's pull up the slideshow and away we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry, give me a second. Oh, there it is. It was hiding on me. Okay. All right, we're going to start. Here we go. Now you can see. All right, so supercharge your summer with mocktails and elixirs. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. But before we get going, I wanted to just really invite and remind you, it's solstice, and just kind of give a little thanks to this time of year. Now, this to some people might be like, oh, well, why is solstice important anymore? We live under these luminous lights all the time. We're not so much sun worshipers anymore. Well, the truth of the matter is that every culture, doesn't matter the spiritual practice or faith, that somehow in some way kind of worship the sun. You know, any culture that I've learned about their practices and their mythology, there's a key elements to the sun, and this time of year is when we have the most light, and so with that, it means that it's the most potent time to kind of absorb our solar battery, to awaken our inner light, and to just kind of really connect in and do a lot more. We get more energized during this time of year. And throughout history, this has been a time of tradition to really come back into ceremony around just, hey, you know, what is to realign with what our path is. I like to think that the summer solstice light casts a bright light on all of our shadows and exposes our shadows. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of tune into how to gain some a more awareness and realignment with what really matters for us, what's not serving us, what's serving us. From the astrology perspective, this is really the season of wise, nurturing, intuitive energy of the Cancer sign. So this is one of those times of year, whether you have any kind of faith or practice, all people throughout history have aligned with the darkest day, the lightest day, and the equinoxes. So these midhavens and these equinoxes and solstices have been really important over the course of history. Of course, we've lost some of that due to having access to central heat and power and all these things, making us a little less connected to the natural cycle of the earth. But everything around us, all the plants, all the animals, all of this planet is a sun worshiper. So this is a prominent time for us to kind of reconnect with that. It's also a time to play, to be more physically active, to connect with nature, and to feast. So the invitation, if you haven't done so today, is maybe within the next day or two to really set aside some time to tune in with these elements of play and nature. Throughout history, like I mentioned, this summer solstice has really been this time also of rebirth and fertility, and really to connect with the light within us. I am a big fan of creating ritual around these times of year to really just add some potency to them and to make them a little more visceral in my experience. So one of my favorite rituals that I actually haven't done this year, but I've often done at solstice, and I did this last winter solstice, is to take a bit of time to slow down, write down on paper an intention, a thought, a feeling that I want to move through this next cycle with. And then traditionally with solstice, there's always a ceremony of fire. So what I'll usually do in a little flame-proof bowl or outside if I can, right now there's a fire ban on, so I can't have a fire, but I can have a little thing in my chimney. I'll light that little message to myself on fire as a bit of a ritual to bring it into my life. This is what I like to do. This is kind of a fun way to create a little ceremony. But regardless, if you can set aside some time in the next day or two to journal, to be with yourself, to slow down, to connect with the natural world, to sit with your thoughts, this can be really powerful in creating some momentum throughout the season. It's also obviously a time of gardening and all this kind of stuff, getting out there. So yeah, just really wanted to tune in and give thanks to what solstice has been in the past, how it's shaped humanity and the way we show up on this planet, and what it means to the natural world as well. This is a opportunity to really release what no longer serves us and to really move through, tap into our inner and outer abundance. Okay. So yeah, some thoughts are also just to like balancing our energy during this time of year, really getting active and managing our resources, balancing our digestion, connecting in with, as I mentioned, nature, finding space of stillness and recovery. These are all some ideas and thoughts to really tune in with the summer solstice. So with that, I just want to say happy summer solstice and hope you are all thriving in this world. And I know that this world is challenging these days. I have this belief that many of us are one of 50 shades of crazy, myself included. And so sometimes this is one of the reasons I like to look to the plants. I find the plants listen very well. They can tune in. They don't have any kind of preconceived notions. They're always available for me to reconnect and rebalance myself. So my thoughts are always to move back to the natural world for a little solace during solstice. Okay, so with that, let's start talking about some of the ways we can work with herbs. And I will say that herbal medicine is really people's medicine, and there's a lot of ways we can work with plants. One of them, like I had sort of mentioned, is just tuning into the natural world is a great opportunity to just work with plants. This is a form of herbal medicine, as much as it's not intaking herbs into our body. Using the plants to help us with our healing path is really what that is. And so today, though, we're going to talk about making drinks. So this is kind of part of what I'm drinking right now, actually, is a bit of bitters with ginger and sea breeze. This is an easy alcohol-free cocktail. Of course, you can always add whatever you want to these types of drinks, but simply these are some of our favorite things to put together. Sea breeze, this tea that I have right here, is one of our favorites. It used to be known as green tea. That was its original name. We created this tea based on the abundance of the West Coast. And we thought of like green tea, like QI, chi energy. And sea breeze is really much more accurate to what it is. And so we renamed it along with a few of the other teas. Really, this is a bulk kelp and cedar tip and nettle base. So we really were thinking West Coast, connecting in with this energy. There's also obviously a little bit more for flavor. We have the lemon balm and we have a bit of mugwort, a little horsetail, and some spearmint. So here's a tea that is really electrolyte and mineral rich. I love the hint of cedar in there. It just has this really nice flavor that it adds to with the nettles and the spearmint and the mugwort and all these really West Coasty West herbs. And of course, bull kelp is just super mineral rich. Nettles are super mineral rich. Horsetail is super mineral rich. So it's just this really electrolyte mineral rich tea. You could actually make this tea into a hair rinse. I know that might sound weird. Make a super strong concentrated tea. You could actually use this as a hair rinse for helping to remineralize the scalp and helping with thinning hair. Now, really, I've seen horsetail put into some shampoos and things like that for silica and increasing that. But this is just a mineral-rich blend. So this would also be a blend that'd be great for somebody who has a little bit of osteoporosis or bone density losing. Women going through menopause might find teas like this really great. But those minerals work like electrolytes, and they really are great for summer heat. So it's one of my favorite teas to drink iced during the summer. And typically we drink this one iced with lemonade. It's one of our, like the ones we make for our kids, is the sea breeze lemonade. Really simply, make the tea as strong as we possibly can and let it cool down overnight. The other thing that's really neat about mineral-rich herbs, and why I like this sea breeze tea so well, is that if you do something called a cold extraction, or where you start with a hot tea, but you let it sit overnight as a long extraction with the herbs still in the brew, the minerals come out much more effectively when you give it a long brew. So give it a brew for like 3 to 6 hours while it cools down, and you really can pull a lot of the minerals out of that bull kelp and nettles and horsetail. So what I like to do is make a long brewed sea breeze tea as strong as I can. So I'll be using, instead of like a teaspoon per teacup, I'll be using like a tablespoon per teacup to make it really concentrated. Part of the reason is that I really want to see this tea strong, and I'm going to mix it in with other things. So we would make a sea breeze lemonade, or in this case, we're making kind of a sea breeze alcohol-free cocktail, which is a ginger and herbal bitters are going to be what we add to it. So the ginger syrup, I think I've got some here. No, that's not ginger syrup. Ginger syrup is amazing just as a flavor and a sweetener for adding to bubbly water. So I guess I'll kind of go into the recipe in a bit, but this syrup in itself is really good for circulation. So when you add ginger to anything, it helps to move those herbs in through the body. So here we have great for circulation, but also ginger is really good for digestion and nausea. For women, it's great for cramping. So this is one of those syrups that might be good if you're somebody who gets nauseous or has indigestion and needs a bit of a digestive support, or for women, if you get a bit of cramping, ginger can be a great syrup to have on hand. When you add a little bit of honey or sweetener, which is in there's honey in this syrup. It's like we use a wildflower honey. And when you add that into ginger, obviously it makes it a little less spicy and a lot more enjoyable. So one of the old Mary Poppins tricks was a teaspoon of sugar helped the medicine go down. And so syrups are kind of like that. They're a great way to get some of these medicines into kids or those of us who are picky, or adding as a base for these cocktails, these alcohol-free cocktail mocktail type drinks, because they give a little bit of that sweet note to it. So in the case of this, we're going to add ginger and sea breeze to a bitters. And where did my bitters go? I love herbal bitters. I find them to be one of my favorites just to take a little bit on their own. I'm a big fan of our bitters, partially because we designed this one very specifically. I actually worked with my father on designing this, Dr. Terry Willard, because he's really into bitters too. And so asking a lot of his advice and getting to understand his comment was like, the problem with bitters is that people don't like the bitter flavor. So the best thing to work with for bitters is to add in some of those other carminative spices and herbs that have a little more flavor that is enjoyable. So add in a little bit of licorice or anise or fennel, which we've added in the fennel. Add in a little bit of we added some juniper berries, which has a nice flavor to it. There's some peppermint to just kind of increase that nice flavor. A little bit of licorice. So some of these herbs that make it actually a really flavorful bitter. So rather than overwhelmingly tasting that bitter flavor, you get this nice carminative, digestive. I think we put cardamom in this as well, and it makes this beautiful bouquet in your mouth just on its own, or adding it just a dropper full to soda water is amazing as a little light mocktail. Sometimes I'll just do bitters and lemon in soda water, and that is just a great afternoon drink. So anyway, in today's kind of herbs for summer heat drink, or really we'll call it the summer heat electrolyte drink, we're going with sea breeze, ginger syrup, and herbal bitters. And this in itself is really simple. The recipe, and just so you know, you can take a screenshot of any of these if you want, or this is recorded, so you'll get a copy of the recording, and you can follow up and write down any of these recipes afterwards. This is a really simple cooling summer shrub that we've made. And in this case, what we've done is we've added a bit of apple cider vinegar in order to make this more of a shrub. This word shrub comes from really making drinks with vinegar. It's a drinking vinegar thing. And we're seeing with a lot more of this alcohol-free cocktail kind of thing coming up in the world. A lot more people are getting into this. Shrubs have become a great kind of addition to the whole cocktail culture. And this is using a drinking vinegar. In this case, apple cider vinegar is a great thing to use in your drink. So half a cup of apple cider vinegar. My recommendation is that you also have some honey on hand or maple syrup in case you find this to be too sour, the vinegar. And you can also cut the vinegar down a little bit, but I really like these kind of vinegar drinks. They taste great, especially when you add nice flavors to them, like the ginger and the bitters. So really simply, we've made a long cold brew sea breeze tea. We've added that half and half with soda water. So it's half sea breeze tea, half soda water, a couple of tablespoons, or what I like to use is about a shot glass of ginger syrup or a half a shot of ginger syrup, half a cup of apple cider vinegar, and a squeeze of lemon. And then usually actually at least half a lemon in the case of this, and a few, says 1 to 2 droppers of ginger bitters, but you know, if it's me, because I just love this, I'm using 3 to 4 droppers of bitters. This makes enough for like 4 cups. So really, you may want to even cut this recipe in half if you're just making it for you and another person. But it's really easy to serve this over rice or over ice. Sorry, serve it over rice. Yes, perfect. No, but I would also invite that if the sea breeze tea and the long brew is taking too long and you just want to make this quickly, you can actually just do a hot sea breeze tea and then put the ice right into that tea and cool it down just like that. And you can have it ready within an hour. The long brew is more for those of us in the long game who are thinking about it the night before or are wanting to make this a few hours earlier in the day. We might make our tea when we're making our morning elixir or morning coffee or whatever it is you drink, and then drink that cooled sea breeze tea later in the day. Okay, this drink is awesome. I didn't do it exactly like this, how I'm drinking it right now, but I did add a little bit of vinegar, ginger, bitters, and the sea breeze. I didn't have the time for it, so that's what we have right now in my cup. And again, lemon goes a long way with all these. Just herbal bitters and lemon is a favorite kind of drink of mine. I highly recommend you start playing though with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. The other thing you can do if you want to preserve your sea breeze tea longer, you can actually make a pre-made, do a really concentrated sea breeze tea, and then add in the apple cider vinegar and a little bit of alcohol if you want, just a small amount to preserve it so it doesn't go bad, or honey and vinegar, if it's in high enough amounts, will preserve it as well. So teas often kind of start to go a little bit funky, but there's not that much that can go funky in sea breeze. So adding a little bit of vinegar, storing that in the fridge, maybe adding a slight bit of honey and making it almost like a sea breeze tea syrup, or just mixing it all together in a high concentration, and then that should last for a few days in the fridge, and you can add the soda water as you need. So yeah, there's a few ways to make this, but in general, the whole theme is really around creating drinking vinegars with tea. So you could replace this sea breeze tea with another favorite tea of yours. You could replace the ginger syrup with just a little bit of honey or maple syrup or some other kind of syrup. Elderflower syrup is really great. Elderberry syrup could work in this case. I've often made elderberry syrup and apple cider vinegar drinks. They're delicious. They work well, and they're just a great way to go for an afternoon alcohol-free cocktail. Okay, so let's move on to our next drink. So summer's busy, right? Like we get busy. I know I get busy. I got all these projects out in the yard, the garden. We got little building projects we're doing around here, and then there's work and there's all these things going on, and I find myself juggling a lot. I always like to think of summer as chilling out on a nice patio or on a nice rocking chair or a lounge chair, drinking a summer mocktail. But the reality is, most of the time, there's a lot of busy work going on. So we wanted to bring you kind of an idea of how to think about maintenance and recovery, and what might be used for a maintenance and recovery drink in the afternoon after a big day, where we've got these long days like today, longest day of the year. How might we want to take a little break and do some boosting of our mood and energy. And adaptogen tea is really a great way to start. So similar to um, the electrolyte kind of mineral cooling shrub that we talked about earlier, using adaptogenic herbs, letting them long brew and cool down is a great base to make another type of bubbly drink. So you'll see a kind of a trending theme here of here's a very similar type of drink setup. Now you could do vinegar or not. In this case, we decided to give you a recipe without vinegar, which I'll get to in a minute. But we're doing this a little more like a root beer kind of thing, or more of like a chaga adaptogen. Almost, you could make this almost like it were a type of, I don't know, like a root beer or cola type of drink. Obviously, there isn't all of those. You could add a little wintergreen. You could add a few different things if you wanted, but using chaga syrup as our sweetener and as a real antioxidant and immune support, and using our adapt tea as our base. And the adapt tea has a lot of adaptogens in it, and these are all herbs that are helpful for dealing with stress and recovery and maintenance and just sort of managing and supporting the adrenals. These are herbs like ashwagandha and eleuthero, the Siberian ginseng, that have been shown to be semi-longevity herbs, really supporting our adrenals, giving us more fight or flight protection, and really helping us be more resilient to stress. We also have in this one rhodiola, which is kind of, I like to think of it as the Norse stamina herb, really good for adrenal support again, but really for building stamina and endurance. And then Hishu Wu or Foti is a herb out of Asia that, the name loosely translates to Mr. He's black shiny hair. And the whole old fable is that Mr. He is 150 years old and he still has this beautiful black shiny hair, and he's growing his third set of teeth, and he has all these women who just love him, how robust and strong he is. Anyway, the idea is, and it's totally from a whole nother cultural kind of narrative, but that Mr. He, He Shu Wu, drinks faux tea, and it gives him this long life and beautiful black shiny hair even into his late hundreds. So anyway, food for thought. This one also has schizandra berry, which is one of my very favorites. It's a really unique flavor in the adapt tea. The schizandra has all of the 5 major flavors from Chinese medicine of sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and spicy. It supposedly affects all 17 meridian channels and really helps to work with all of our whole body and toning and retoning the internal organs. So this is one, yeah, Schizandra's got a lot of fame to it as well. Very famous herb. The idea in this one is that if you eat Schizandra berries for 100 days, your skin will be as clear as a porcelain doll and all your internal organs will be renewed. So really toning the skin, helping as a beauty herb, but it's more that it's a toner for the internal organs that makes our outside reflect in that same beauty. Okay, there's that. There's also sarsaparilla, which is another one of these adaptogens that supports the adrenals. There's a bit of that root beer type flavor, is in the sarsaparilla flavor, which adds that to this drink. And then holy basil, which is obviously just a really nice recovery, stress supportive, upward moving herb. So love this one. Last herb that's in here is reishi mushroom. And that's, as you may have seen from any of our other webinars, reishi mushroom is our herb of spiritual potency and really grounding and connecting and supporting the body with a lot more of that adaptogenic function for supporting the immune system. So here we have reishi, we've got chaga, we've got the uplifted spirits as well, which is a tincture that this one, the uplifted spirits, is more of one of our mood uplifting, mood enhancing, helpful for the blues or when we're feeling a little bit depressed, but also really just helping to uplift and boost our energy when we're needing a little bit of recovery. So yeah, altogether, this makes a pretty potent, pretty packed drink. Really simply, we've just taken a ton of great adaptogens, mix it in with a chaga syrup, added in a pretty awesome tincture, and we've got a really nice drink. So here's the mocktail soda recipe. And again, I would usually add a little bit of lemon. That's not on the recipe here, but I just like to cut any of these with a little bit of lemon. So I did, in my case, when I made this drink, added some lemon. And we're using, this is just a Adapt tea, brewed and cooled, chaga syrup, and uplifted spirits tincture. Same kind of ratios. We've got a couple of tablespoons, or what I would say is a shot glass to a half a shot glass to a full shot glass of chaga syrup, and a 2.5 cups. It depends on how much tea you're using. The other thing that I would recommend with both of these mocktails that we've talked about tonight is, if you find that they are too strong for you, you can always add more soda water. And or if the herbal is too strong for you, you can always add a little bit more honey or maple. So sometimes I will suggest to people, if they make a really strong adaptogen tea, they may want to add a little more sweetener than just the chaga syrup to it to make it that really yummy drink. The flip side to that, though, is if we get too into sugary, sweet, yummy drinks, well, they can be creating more candida in our body and more fungal stuff, and yeah, spike our blood sugar. Although in this case, one of the beauties of chaga syrup and why I love it so much is it does a good job of stabilizing blood sugar. Even though it has some honey in it, it helps to stabilize the blood sugar because chaga does that really well. So this is a pretty tasty, more dark, effervescent, yeah, mocktail. You could also add in any other kind of tincture. If you had like a reishi mushroom tincture or any of the medicinal mushroom tinctures that might go good in this. I've seen, we've made more like a chaga root beer in the past, and we added just a drop of wintergreen essential oil into a full batch. Now it's very small amount you'd want to make it more of that root beer flavor. But yeah, this is just a pretty tasty adaptogen mocktail. And so if you're feeling as though something that you find is those mid-afternoons you get really tired in these big days, or you're spending a lot of time outside, or maybe you go tubing down the river, or you do some kind of big outdoor sun activity and you just need to cool in the shade, and you don't want to do alcohol and have a beer or a whatever it is, cooler or whatever it might be, making an adaptogen mocktail is just a pretty great way to recover, give us energy, and not have us groggy and sloshy and all that stuff. So I like this kind of drink in the mid-afternoon. I find it to be a refreshing way to really enhance and reboost my energy. Okay, so let's move on to a couple of other ideas around making drinks. We talked about mocktail type soda drinks. Those are easy. I didn't mention this, but let's go back a slide. With these, I tend to use the Soda Stream. So you could use Perrier or San Pellegrino or any of those kind of bubbly waters, or you could buy bubbly water from like mineral water from a grocery store. I started making these drinks because we bought one of those Soda Streams, which is that bubbler that you can just do a CO2 bubbling with any kind of water. And we found that all the syrups with those were terrible. They were just not very good, not well made, a lot of sugars and weird chemistry in them and preservatives. And I just was not into it. So we started with elderberry syrup. We now tend to make a fir tip syrup at home. We tend to make elderflower syrup. We tend to make these syrups and craft up our own drinks. We've made a bunch of different types of bitters at home too. So if you get a little more herb nerdy and you want to kind of tune into that, or if you don't know how to do that stuff, I'd invite you to check out Wild Rose College of Herbal Medicine. I've written a course there on really herbal pharmacy and a lot of different cocktail, mocktail recipes and ways to make shrubs and sodas and all these other kinds of drinks. So you can check out the herbal pharmacy course at Wild Rose, and it'll give you a much more in-depth way to craft up your own, but also use any of these recipes that we're talking about and start to play, right? Have fun with this. This is more of a template. Our products, and we've kind of tuned these in, taste really great in here. They make it easy for you to know that you're getting a well-formulated, high-quality herbal product. So that's kind of the reason why we've crafted up these recipes in this way. Yeah, and also combined in a way that are giving you a specific effect. Okay. Sorry. All right, so now we're going to move on to making a kind of an iced latte using Kickstart and cordyceps. You could use, again, you could start that off with the Adapt tea. That might be a great way to start off an iced latte, but Kickstart is really a coffee substitute. So I'll talk about this one for a minute. it's one that we've often suggested you brew hot in a replacement or as an alternative to coffee. It's got a lot of kick like coffee, but it also has a lot of antioxidants. So, some of when I was first crafting this on the market, there was only things like Dandy Blend and Inca and things that weren't really, we'll say, activating or caffeinated or energizing in that way. And so we really wanted to craft up something that was yerba mate based and had a lot of this energy, but also was more of an adaptogen type blend that supported all of the challenges that coffee creates. So we put chaga mushroom in here in the Kickstart to be able to help balance out blood sugars and stabilize the blood sugars. We also wanted to add some dandelion root to work with the liver and do some of that detoxifying. Plus, it has that nice kind of coffee-like flavor. Both of those do. We added some maca for adrenal support, cacao, obviously, for that bliss and that the theobromine and those kind of a little bit of a stimulating, energizing effect that it has. Plus, of course, a deep, dark roasted mate that has that really beautiful flavor. A little sarsaparilla, which is in that adaptogen blend that has more of that rootsy, nice blending, almost sweet root beer type combination. Doesn't taste like root beer at all, this blend, but all these together made for a really awesome product. And Kickstart's been a favorite at Harmonic Arts for a long time. It's just a delicious way to replace coffee and still create a really nice, energizing drink that does a lot of these healing benefits and almost reverses those issues with coffee. Now, we wanted to pair this with something for more of that energy. This is more of like a pre-workout drink or get me up and get me going in the morning because I have a big day kind of drink. So or it could be the mid-afternoon blues if you need a bit more energy then too. But really, we thought, wow, what better thing to pair it with than cordyceps? Because cordyceps has this real deep adrenal support. It opens up the bronchioles too, so you get better oxygenation into the blood, and therefore a lot more capacity to have endurance and stamina while working out or working hard. So yeah, this is just probably the perfect herb to add to this blend to make it more of that, and it's not really a herb, it's a mushroom, but to make it more energizing and nourishing. So we use our cordyceps concentrated mushroom powder, a quarter teaspoon of that, and a tablespoon of Kickstart is about how I like to do it. Let's see what it says here. Oh, a quarter teaspoon and 3 tablespoons. All right. I'm going to argue this recipe and say quarter teaspoon to a tablespoon. Maybe I'd put a half a tablespoon or a teaspoon of cordyceps in there, but I like my cordyceps stronger. I tend to like my medicinal mushrooms stronger than the necessary requirements based on our NPN and based on what the research has said. This is how much you need to have a therapeutic effect. Well, I tend to like to use my mushrooms double that. That's just the way I am. So I loved making this. I got to make this recipe and just had a lot of fun. I've made a lot of Kickstart iced lattes in the past, but this one was great. I really had fun crafting up a cordyceps Kickstart oat milk. I think I used almond milk actually though in the one I made. But really, oat milk being a little more user-friendly and savvy these days, almond milk gets a bit of a bad rap because there's not that many almonds in a lot of the pre-made almond milks out there. So if you are going to do almond milk, I highly recommend you watch a YouTube video on making nut milks for yourself. Get a nut milk bag and soak some almonds, blend it up. They're really simple. We used to do that lots at Harmonic Arts, but you get really flavorful, delicious nut milks by making them yourself. Okay, so in this case, what we've done is we haven't brewed the Kickstart. We've added it in cold. I did this in a blender. You can do this straight on ice or with one of those frothing ones. So you don't need to use a blender, but you see how this one has a nice head on it that really feels like that latte kind of thing. That's something that happens magically when you put it in a blender. You get this nice frothing of the nut milks. So yeah, really simply, 3 tablespoons of Kickstart into the bottom of the blender. I'm going to say half a teaspoon of cordyceps into the top after that. Add a little bit of honey in there, honey to choice, just enough. I tend to put just a touch in so it helps to harmonize the flavors, but doesn't overpower it so it doesn't become a sweet drink. So I'm not really tasting sweet, tasting those kind of coffee notes that the Kickstart has. Mix this with oat milk. If you want, what I've done in this case is usually blended it with ice. So I will add ice into the blender and blend it, or you can do pour over an ice. Usually if you're going to pour it over, I would use a frother and use one of those little frothing ones and froth it first, and then put ice in the glass and make a nice ice latte. Delicious, super simple, only takes maybe like 2-3 minutes to make one of these. Because it's dry powders and oat milk and honey, and basically what I actually did in my case, because I find these nut milks are too strong, I did 50% water and 50% oat milk or 50% almond milk. So that's something you might want to think about with this recipe. You could cut the oat milk with a tea, like the Adaptogen tea, the Adapt tea and oat milk, 50-50. So in this case, a cup and a quarter of oat milk and a cup and a quarter of Adaptogen tea would be great. Or just cut the oat milk with water if you want. And that's what I did, because the Kickstart has a lot of flavor on its own. Anyway, easy drink, great iced latte, great for those mid-afternoons or hot mornings or whatever it is. Yeah, and just a really simple way to start to kind of activate our day with a tonic instead of a coffee, right? And part of the reason we're sharing these recipes and these ideas is because we want to help you. If you're one of those people who is ritualistically addicted to coffee, nothing right, nothing wrong, but know that over a lifetime of drinking coffee all the time, it's not, it doesn't serve us over time after a while. And I've been guilty of drinking coffee in the morning regularly, and I don't mind it. I think it's great. It gives me energy, but replacing that with a Kickstart latte, it feels really good. My day goes better. I have more stabilized blood sugars. I've still got that energy in the wake up, but I don't kind of crash or get this like weird uh, tummy feeling where I'm like, oh, I need to eat because I just had coffee. So yeah, that's me, and that's what I like to do. So anyway, just sharing that, and think it's a great drink for you to maybe play with. You could also, I'll just say one more thing. You could do this with a 5-mushroom drinking chocolate as well. And same with the next one. This is our Activate. I would recommend Activate or 5-mushroom drinking chocolate being a really great type of beverage for stamina and recovery, and to make them in a similar way. In this case, we're gonna talk about making a smoothie, but I just wanted to touch on Activate first. This is a beverage that is one of our favorites. It's really superfood rich. So where Kickstart has more of that adaptogen kind of recovery, energy, adrenal support, and 5-mushroom drinking chocolate has that immune mushroom antioxidant support. Activate is a cacao blend that has more superfood energy building, and not like energizing and stimulating like the Kickstart is, but more energizing and giving us much more of that superfood base to work from. So sometimes I like to mix Kickstart and Activate and make Kicktivate. So you might want to try that. If you go back to this recipe and go 1 teaspoon of Kickstart, 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon of Kickstart, 1 tablespoon of Activate, and you can make a nice Kicktivate iced latte. But it also has a herb called shilajit, and shilajit is a mineral pitch known as rock warrior. That's really the name that shilajit in Sanskrit translates to. And it's actually this pitch off of the high mountains that has all kinds of fulvic acid and humic acid and over 83 minerals in it. And it is really the stamina recovery building herb. Very, very useful, very well known and prestigious in Ayurvedic medicine because its ability to help people who are malnourished and have an inability to really digest the herbs, or the herbs aren't working for them. They can work with shilajit to recover and rebuild. Also pulling out, because it has all that fulvic acid, like really helping people move through heavy metal chelation and work with radioactive isotopes and too much of these kind of static energy in our lives. So if you're on screens a lot, shilajit might be a great kind of herb to help sort of fortify and protect, give you that rock warrior edge. This also has cacao and mesquite, and calcium and magnesium are part of what I like to call cacao and mesquite as the CalMag supplement. Magnesium is cacao is very high in magnesium. Mesquite is very high in calcium. Together they work out to equal this really nice blissful way of getting a CalMag supplement, a mineral rich, energizing blend. So you can blend this with good fats and away you go to make a nice activate hot latte. But we're going to show you how to make kind of an activate smoothie. So we can make hot lattes. Most of these drinks were designed originally just to add like basically honey and coconut oil and blend with hot water or tea, and they're great. But in this case, we're suggesting that you can do this cold too. And this is great. The kind of it's a take on the chocolate banana smoothie. This is a kid's favorite. So I make this for my kids all the time. We do dates, hemp hearts, and bananas. That's kind of our base for making them. Usually we use the 5 mushroom chocolate for them, but Activate is just as good to make a nice cold activated smoothie. Really simply, another template you can use is some of these herbal blends and elixirs in a smoothie, and simply using cooled tea as an add-in. One of the things about tea, and just to think about it, is tea is like water that's been inspired with the power of herbal medicine. So if you're into making tea, what you're doing is you're actually giving your water an upgrade with herbal intelligence. So anytime you're thinking you're going to use water, is there a tea you could use instead? Could I brew that water into adaptogen tea or sea breeze tea or a nice kind of like nervine calming tea or a digestive calm belly tea or a soothing kind of throat coating tea like our songbird tea. So there's a lot of different ways we can take water, blend it into a tea, and then use that tea in our smoothies or in our lattes or in our oatmeal even. So I've been known to make adaptogen oatmeal and super tonic oatmeals with all kinds of fun things in them. Anyway, so this is just a simple recipe. You've probably made a smoothie or two in your life, and bananas and dates. The reason for dates is it really helps to give a bit of sweet without adding any sugar. Yeah, and hemp hearts are just high in good fats. They're good in a cold smoothie. They're not good in a hot drink. So yeah, this will make a couple of glasses, just a delicious drink. I usually make them in little mason jars like this. Make this recipe, make 3 or 4 mason jars for my kids and myself, and away we go as a nice, quick, activated smoothie hit. Okay, so mushrooms are something else we can add to all these. We do them in 3 different forms. Really, the tincture or the powder is how we might want to add them to some of these drinks. And they really have that immune support. So this is another add-in to think about. Also, we have a number of different syrups, so I'd highly invite you to just tune into what kind of syrups work for you for crafting up, and what do you want to play with. Even the lung and cough. I know it sounds like it's lung and cough, but I've tried it on soda water, and it's pretty darn good on its own. So you might want to play with some syrups. I'm a big fan, sorry, of this elder ginger. That's one of my favorite. And chaga syrup just on its own with soda water is awesome. We've also got here, and we have some recipes on our website. You can check some of those out. Making like summer popsicles. I know we have a recipe somewhere I saw around that. And just a great way to do this is to, yeah, make these into popsicles, make them into mocktails and soda drinks. Iced lattes and herbal elixir drinks. This kind of golden milk, matcha mind, or 5 mushroom all make a great iced kind of smoothie or coffee alternative. Sometimes I will suggest to people, if they are into doing iced coffee, to just add a tablespoon of the 5 mushroom drinking chocolate to their iced coffee and make it a iced mocha. So you can add that one to coffee, or Activate can go to coffee, but really you don't need that. Just go with the 5 mushroom itself. Okay, so I want to just say thank you all. Appreciating you for joining us. I'm not going to keep you all too long. I'm happy to answer any questions and kind of jump in. So if you have any questions you want to add to the chat, add them. And I just want to really re-invite Happy Solstice. You know, this is a time to celebrate our abundance, our how fortunate we are to be in this world, to really let the light in so it can cast away some of our shadow, to consider and reconcile what we're doing that's serving us and what we're doing that's not serving us. So how do we want to step forward in this next cycle around the sun? So I'll leave you with a quote. Yesterday is history and tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift, and that is why we call it the present. So be present today, touch some grass in this next few days, tune into yourself. What is in alignment with what serves you and what doesn't? Is there noise? Is there static? Is there things that you're allowing yourself to be distracted by that aren't actually helping you reach the potential of the more kind of beautiful self you know is possible? Yeah, I will say we've been through some hard stuff. This is like solstice aside, we're all just kind of coming out of a 3-year stint of being in a bit of an altered state. Many of us stuck in our homes, kind of re-coming back and trying to re-normalize and integrate into the world. And I would say that's not easy. I haven't met one person yet that has bounced back entirely from COVID and be like, yay, I'm totally the same again. We've all changed. And that's important to acknowledge that change, not to try and avoid it, to sit with what did we learn here and how can I move forward with the best intention possible and what really serves me. So that would be my call and invite. And I will say before we go, uh, yeah, lots more herbal tips and recipes at harmonicarts.ca. There's also a lot more webinars. If you click on the little webinar button on harmonicarts.ca, you'll find that, or harmonicartslive.com is our actual dedicated webinar website. And you can also follow us at Harmonic Arts or Harmonic Arts on Instagram for a lot of recipes too. All summer long, we'll be posting more recipes, more ways to play with herbs and craft them into summer fun enjoyment. The concept is that as plant medicine is people's medicine, our job as a company is to be a medicine bridge for you to bring it and integrate it into your natural lifestyle and make it part of how to like incorporate having fun and really enjoying creating good health in an easy and fun way. Okay,